Okay, let's turn our attention now to a story that's rocking the State Department. The Southern Poverty Law Center is now reporting to have uncovered a State Department employee under the Bureau of Energy Resources to be leading a double life as a white nationalist. It was all found in a new program called Hate Watch. Matthew Q. Gerbert, who goes by the pseudonym Coach Finstock, allegedly hosted white nationalist parties at his home and expressed a desire to build a whites-only country equipped with nukes online. Now, joining us to discuss this, investigative journalist Ben Swann. So first, Ben, as vile as Matthew Gerbert's views might be, is it wrong or in any way illegal for him to, host these parties or express his views or dreams or what have you in these online groups?
Right. So it's an interesting question because, first of all, nothing that's described in this Hate Watch expose describes any kind of violent behavior or behavior that harms the lives of another person. It's merely beliefs, that someone has white nationalist beliefs. Now, you and I can agree that we think that those kinds of beliefs are wrong or even despicable. But that doesn't mean that they're, as you pointed out, illegal, or that you should be terminated from your job because you hold these beliefs. Now, keep in mind, you got to take everything the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, says with a grain of salt, because they get a lot of things wrong. And they're also an organization that really, they tie a lot of things together that many times are unrelated in order to smear people. So I have very low regard for the SPLC. Having said that, if they are correct, even by the terms of their own investigation, they had to really try to connect dots to make sure that this person was the same one as this online persona, which means that the State Department may have policies about what you can say at work and creating a hostile work environment for the people around you. But that doesn't appear to be the case here if it took this much digging to try to connect the fact that these two people might be on some level connected to each other, these two entities.
So, I'm pretty clear here that you and I are both not advocating for white nationalism for very obvious reasons and not defending this guy if these things are true about him. But we are talking about his freedom of speech. We are talking about what's actually lawful and what's not. And to be real here, white nationalism, the KKK, and all these other such hate groups, they have always existed in the U.S. Let's just be real. In fact, even past senators, Supreme Court justices, they've been known to actually be members of the KKK. Not saying that that's okay, but just pointing that out. Is this sentiment then, is it actually growing, Ben, or are they just kind of being highlighted more so now because we have the internet, we have social media, and obviously this political climate that we live in today?
Yeah, this is a great question. I'm really glad that you brought this up, because the reality is, if you go back to times of white nationalism or where whites wanted to separate themselves from people of color, this is a smaller time for that than any other time in U.S. history, right? If you go back 100 years, if you go back 50 years, it's not like we came from a great, diverse, inclusive society to now finding people want to separate themselves. We are more inclusive as an American society now than we have ever been, no question.
Absolutely.
The other thing is this, and the reality is that in terms of white nationalism, it is a tiny, tiny subsection of the population. Yes, they have podcasts, and they talk about this in the Hate Watch article. These guys have podcasts. I looked up their podcasts to see exactly what we're talking about, and they get like 130 views on their podcasts, and probably 100 of them are the SPLC trying to investigate. And so when you look at these, you're like, these people are not affecting large groups of people. They're not drawing it in. If you listen to the media narrative right now, they act as if white nationalism is the great threat in America.
Right.
When in actuality, it's a tiny subsection of people who have terrible views. But again, it goes back to a question I asked you the other day. So what do you do with these people? When you out them, when you dox them, when you find them? Should they all be fired from their jobs? Should they be locked in cages? I mean, what is the SPLC's remedy for what to do with someone when you find out they have a belief that's different than yours?
Right, because it's not illegal to dislike anybody for any reason. So just to highlight that.
And in a lot of cases, white nationalists will say they don't want to harm people they don't want to harm Jews or blacks or Hispanics. They'll say, we just want to be separate from them. We don't want to harm their culture. We just want to celebrate white culture. That's what many of them will say. So it's not even true, this idea that everyone who's in this tiny subsection is also a mass shooter or is also violent. That's not necessarily the case either.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, a lot of them do just, kind of want to keep to themselves, and most of them mind their own business, because I've personally never met one in all the years I've traveled around the country and the world. But, that maybe explains why I've never met one, because I don't exactly look like somebody they probably want to hang out with. But lastly, Ben, how do you handle something like this? So here you are, a coworker at the State Department, and let's be clear, there's thousands of people that work at the State Department. So you find out your coworker holds these views or whatever, he gets outed, he gets doxxed. How do you handle working with this guy, or how should the State Department handle him?
Well, the bottom line is the State Department has to look at whether or not this person has violated any of the terms of working there. It doesn't sound like so far they have. Again, if this was so secretive and so hard for the SPLC to be able to prove that this person is the same online persona as they are the person working at the State Department, then they're probably not espousing these views around the water cooler. Number one. Number two, if you're a coworker, I would see this as a great opportunity. If I found out that someone that I worked with was a white nationalist and had these views, I would want to help to expand their worldview and help them to see why maybe the things that they believe are misguided, not ostracize them, which only further cements them in these ideas, but to expand their worldview. As somebody who completely disagrees with the ideology, but also agrees that people have the right to believe what they think, I also believe you have the right to try to persuade people out of those things. And you only do that with dialogue, with compassion, and with kindness. You don't do it with trying to ruin their lives.
Exactly. Let's try to approach things with love and try to overcome the hate with love. As they say, right? Love trumps hate. So let's see if that happens. Ben Swann, we'll leave it right there. Thank you so much, my friend.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.